Okay, hello everyone. So today I will discuss a semi-empirical model of atmospheric escape, which describes the variation of atmospheric escape with planetary magnetization. I would like to thank my co-author, in particular Herbert Gunel, who has first developed this model. So the goal with such a model is not really to explore the dynamics of escape, but rather to give a global picture of what could happen or what could be the effect of planetary magnetization on atmospheric escape. So why did we choose such an approach? First, because it's very complicated to model atmospheric escape. It requires modeling the coupling between a star, a planet, and its different regions, like the atmosphere, the ionosphere. And even if we have a very good model, we still remain limited by our limited knowledge of the past planetary and stellar conditions if we want to explore the past evolution of atmospheres. But on the other hand, we have a large amount of data which was accumulated during the last decades around Venus, Earth, and Mars, which are related to atmospheric escape. And that was done during several solar cycles, and so for various solar activity levels. So the idea with a semi-empirical model is to use at best those data and extrapolate them to explore what happened in the past for atmospheric escape. So I think it follows France's approach. We keep things simple, and as we will see, we will consider one parameter at a time. So we already published a study using this model. That's a paper by Herbert Gunel in 2018, which describes the escape rate as a function of the planetary magnetic moment for average current solar and planetary conditions. Now, what we want to do is to investigate how solar wind pressure can also have impact the escape rate dependency on the planetary magnetic moment. And today in this talk, I will mostly focus on Hopeless escape from the polar cap and polar scup region, and for the Earth in particular. So a quick summary of the first results obtained with this model and how it works. So in this model, we include 7 escape processes. So 2 of them are not dependent on the planetary magnetic moment. It's Jeans escape and dissociative recombination. And then we also consider ion pickup, atmospheric sputtering, cross-field ion loss, polar cap and polar cup escape. And all these escapes are constrained by observations and scaled with a simple magnetic field model. And in this model, what interests us for the scaling is the standoff distance of the magnetopause, which is obtained by considering the pressure balance between the solar wind and the planetary magnetic field. So when the magnetospheric boundary is estimated at lower altitude than the induced magnetospheric boundary, we consider that the planet is unmagnetized. And then for magnetized planets, we also compute the polar cap area and the magnetospheric cross-section. So the main results from this first study with this model were actually pretty interesting, because it was showing that, so you see this on this plot, I will explain it. So the horizontal axis is the planetary magnetic dipole. So you see the values for Venus and Mars, which are magnetized, for the Earth and for Jupiter. The bottom panel is the neutral escape rate. And the top panel is the total escape rate, including oxygen and hydrogen only. So first, we see that for magnetized planet or unmagnetized planet, the escape rates are pretty similar. It's not lower for magnetized planets. And also we see that the variation of the escape rate with magnetic moment is not monotonic. We see actually 2 peaks of escape, one for low magnetic moment, which correspond to polar cap escape and is dominated by H+ ions, and the second one for magnetic moment higher than the one of the Earth, which is dominated by polar cap escape and oxygen ion escape. See, for more details, I refer you to Herbert's paper. But this is obtained for current solar wind and atmospheric conditions. So we use the average solar wind pressure everything average the atmospheric conditions and so it's quite difficult from these results to guess what happened in the past when the sun, the solar activity was probably higher, the solar wind was different, and also atmospheric conditions were different. So the idea now was to, in order to maybe better understand what happened in the past, it was first to look at the effect of solar wind pressure. So instead of having an outflow rate as a function of the magnetic moment, we want to have the dependency on magnetic moment and solar wind pressure. So to do that, we consider two main effects of solar wind pressure. The first one is just due to the shape of the magnetosphere. So it's geometrical effect due to the compression of the magnetosphere by the solar wind. And there we consider the cross-section of the magnetosphere, the standard distance of the magnetopause, and the polar cap area. And another thing is that the change in solar wind pressure may also change the flux density of the escape, so the flux density of polar cap and polar cap escape. So now I will show you how we include those things in the model. So that's results that we obtain in the model. We are scaling with the magnetic field model. So this plot shows you the variation of the distance of the subsolar point as a function of the planetary magnetic moment for various levels of solar wind pressure in nanopascal. So what we see is that the planetocentric distance of the subsolar point increases with the planetary magnetic moment and decreases with solar wind pressure. Then if we look at the magnetospheric cross-section, it increases when the planetary magnetic field is higher, which is pretty obvious, and it decreases with solar wind pressure because the magnetosphere gets compressed, more compressed by the solar wind. And concerning the polar cap solid angle, its area decreases with the planetary magnetic moment and increases with the solar wind pressure. So that's for the geometrical effects. Now, from that, we want to estimate the total escape from the two sources we consider here. So the polar cap and polar cap escape. So here, sorry, it's polar cap, not polar cusp. So for the flux density variation of the polar cap escapes, basically the polar wind on open field line at high latitudes, we use observations from the cluster spacecraft, which describe the variation of the flux density of the polar wind as a function of the planetary magnetic moment. And we just use a simple fitting function for that. And we also consider that it can be a limitation of this flux. I mean, it's limited by the amount of ions that the ionosphere can supply. And we have estimates for this maximum flux, theoretical one, but also from observations made by cluster. And we consider it's 10 to the power of 13 per square meter per second. And then from that, we can get the total flux just by multiplying the flux density by the area of the polar caps. And that gives you this function, which is the function which describes the polar cap outflow in our model. And so that's the result. So what we see, it's a monotonic decrease of polar cap escape with magnetic moment. So the higher the magnetic moment of the planet, the lower the polar cap escape rate. And the effect of solar wind pressure is to increase this polar cap escape rate because it increases the size of the polar cap, basically. Now we did the same thing for cusp escape. So cusp escape also occurs on open field line on the day side part of the high latitude ionosphere. And there is a lot of precipitating energy, which is originating from the solar wind. So there, to estimate the flux density, we didn't use data, or we just use actually one reference value, which is the average value observed now at Earth. And we scale it with the model, taking into account two things. We consider that the energy flux in the polar caps, which drives outflow, is proportional to the cross-section of the magnetosphere. and to the energy flux of the solar wind. So that's the two terms you can see in this equation. And that gives us a formula which describes the variation of the flux density of polar cusp outflow with solar wind pressure. And here again, we consider limitation of the flux, which is due to the amount of ions that can be supplied by the ionosphere. And same as before, we just compute the total escape rate by multiplying the flux density by the area of the polar cap. And so we include this formula in the model and get results. But before that, we can first try to compare our formulas with observations. So we compare the flux density variation with solar wind pressure as we estimate it with observations from the cluster spacecraft. So this formula is the one from our model, which used just one reference value for the average escape rate at the cusp now. We got similar value using two papers. One, I think it's from Polar Observations, and the other one, paper by Slapak, it's Cluster Observations. And then we scale it with the magnetic field model. And we see an increase of the flux density with solar wind pressure, which is in really good agreement with the cluster observations. So these two plots have the same scales. So we see a similar variation, which gives us some confidence in the model. Also, something else I want to point at, if you look in the model, when you increase solar wind pressure to very high values, then we reach a saturation, which is due to the fact that we reach the maximum flux of ions that can be supplied by the ionosphere. And so the result is that for polar cusp escape, we see one peak, which shifts to lower magnetic moment as the solar wind pressure increases. So at the beginning, when the magnetic moment increases, the energy deposited in the cusp increases. So does the escape rate until you reach the saturation flux, and then it decreases just because the polar cap will shrink. And something else, so you see that when you go to very high values of the solar wind pressure, you have a saturation. Okay, and then if you just consider the two escape mechanisms, polar cap and polar cusp escape, what you see is that the same two peaks for low solar wind pressure, the same one we had in the first paper, and then for high solar wind pressure levels, then the two peaks are kind of merging because the one of the cusp shifts to lower magnetic moment, and so you only have one peak. Okay, so then if you look at the values, it remains limited to the maximum we get for the O+ escape rate, 10 to 27 ions per second, and so it's still relatively low, or at least it cannot remove an ocean from a planet. So to summarize, the effect of solar wind pressure on polar cap and polar cap O+ outflow at Earth. Well, increasing solar wind pressure decreased the magnetospheric cross-section. It increased the energy density in the solar wind. And of the two effects, the increase of the energy density wins. So it increased the energy deposition in the ionosphere and thus the flux of escaping ions. But at the same time, it decreased the area of the polar cusp and polar cap. For high solar wind pressure levels, the escape rate peaks for planetary magnetic moment lower than the one of the Earth. And the maximum escape rate is something around 30 kilo per second, so it's relatively limited. And what is the main things which limit this escape rate is actually the amount of ions that can be provided by the ionosphere. And I think that's something we heard a lot during the last 2 days. It's really shows the importance of, I think, the stellar EUV and UV flux for atmospheric erosion, because it will maybe change or increase the amount of ion that can be provided by the ionosphere. And I will stop here. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So do we have questions? Anyone want to put their hand up or? Okay, so here's a quick question. maybe I missed something, but why is increasing solar wind pressure would decrease the polar cap area?
Why exactly? Difficult to say. That's what we get from our magnetic field model. Why exactly? I don't want to say something wrong. I don't know. That's what we get from our simple magnetic field model.
I see. Yeah, it seemed like something that would have a simple explanation, but I guess what you're saying is it doesn't.
I don't have the simple explanation, so I prefer saying nothing.
Yeah. And it looked like most of your comparisons were done with Earth. Is that right? Have you been able to compare with other planets?
First, it's difficult to compare with observations when you already include observations in the model. So you have to be careful not to compare something that you already included in the model. For the effect of solar wind pressure, no, I didn't compare. I didn't compare with observation at Mars or Venus, just with observation at Earth. But what we can say is that the total value we get are consistent with the estimate from observations, even around Mars or Venus or Earth.
Okay, and then one more from Kaneko Seki. The size of the polar cap and location of magnetopause depend also on the IMF orientation at Earth. How can you include the effects of erosion by magnetic reconnection?
Yeah, we can do that in our magnetic field model. For the moment, we keep a fixed value because we just want to like look at one parameter after the other to understand what happens. Because, well, if you with such a model, you also have to be careful and be aware of its limitations. So I think it's better to understand what happened with each parameters independently. And also, on average, on long time periods, BZ is half of the time positive, half of the time negative, and we keep it fixed for the moment.
Okay, and then what is the mechanism expected for the polar cap O+ outflow?
Well, as you saw, we have no physics in this model. Then the mechanism, well, you have particle precipitation, a lot of things happening in the cusp, particle precipitations, a lot of waves, a lot of energy. Cusp outflow is pretty energetic. So many things happen, but for us in the model, it's a black box. We just look at the input parameters and the escape rate. We don't consider what happens, and there is no physics in the model.
All right, thank you very much. I think we should move on to the next talk.